Okay. Today, we're speaking with Adam Orman and Kara Hanaoka of Good Work Austin, a nonprofit organization that partners with food workers and businesses to shape an industry where workers are valued and locally owned businesses succeed.
That sounds like a lovely world. I want to live there. So welcome. To start us off, we're just wondering if you all could share a little bit of information about how you got to this table here in Austin and with Good Work as Austin as well for your personal and professional careers. So do you want to start, ladies first? Start with,
We decided Adam would start.
Oh, wow. Okay, we'll defer to
Gentlemen first.
As long as we let
It's
you
a new
decide.
Yeah.
So I'm Adam Orman. I own 2 restaurants in Austin, Locadoro and Bambino. I've been working in the restaurant industry for most of my adult life, going back to about 1998 in New York and then San Francisco. And then we moved back here where my wife was born and raised. And Locadoro opened about 10 years ago and helped found Good Work Austin 8 years ago after the paid sick leave ordinance was being passed at City Council.
I didn't realize Loco had been open for 10 years.
We just had our 10th birthday 2 weeks ago.
That's a long time for a restaurant to be open, especially in Austin.
It's been a wild 10 years. So yeah, we were open for 4 years and then shut down for a year, and now it's hard to believe that we've been open now more post-pandemic than we were pre-pandemic, but the numbers don't lie.
Well, that says something special about, I'm sure, your work ethic and the restaurant itself as far as being able to stay open through all the growth and the challenges that are here in Austin.
Yeah, I mean, just to say quickly, it's my job, and I think a lot of restaurants that close are owned, and we'll get into this later, are owned by people who aren't necessarily working there. So I have a very serious vested interest in keeping it open, so that I can continue to have a job, and that's a really good reason to support local businesses and why I wanted to why Good Work Austin happened.
It happened as a result of you being involved in the day-to-day and kind of seeing what was going on with your employees, with regulations, with all those things.
And seeing that the struggles for my friends who own restaurants is the same, that they were going through a lot of the same things, and we didn't want to fight over the same pool of resources. We really wanted to be able to help each other and be able to work together to change the world so that it would be easier for us to exist as local independent restaurants.
That's no small task.
Nah.
Kara, how did you come to Good Work Austin and end up in Austin as well?
Yeah, so I have been with Good Work Austin almost 2 years now. It'll actually be 2 years next week. And I came to Austin about 16 years ago, right around the time where the recession was happening. Everyone was kind of looking for a job. I'm from Ohio. But my kind of growing up, I worked in restaurants. And so my first job was actually at McDonald's. And I kind of learned a lot about food service, worked in college, and then moving down here, that was also my first job in Austin, was working at a restaurant. So serving at a restaurant. So got involved with nonprofits, kept working in restaurants, and 16 years later, it led me to finding Good Work Austin, kind of both of my passions, working in nonprofits, working in restaurants, and to Adam's point, kind of solving an issue that we see, which is that our food workers need support. They're our lowest paid, workers in our city. They need all of these different things that maybe, an office job would provide, like healthcare and PTO and all of those things. And so really thinking about how can we support independent restaurants throughout the city to treat their workers the way, they want to treat them. And so that kind of hooked me into Good Work Austin. And now I'm kind of one of the forces behind it.
It seems like I see you everywhere, so you might be one of the main forces behind it from what I can see.
There is 5 staff members now, so we're really excited. But we've had extreme growth over the last 2 years.
What occupies most of your time in that role?
Wow, great question. It's a lot of juggling a lot of different hats. So there's a big component of just making sure we have enough resources to keep our nonprofit going. And so, working in nonprofits a lot about diversifying your funding, talking to, corporations, foundations, individuals, trying to make sure that you're really thinking about sustainability because, our city of Austin, is, consistently now cutting their budget each year. And so certain funding sources are drying up for nonprofits. And so just making sure that's sustainable. So that's a big part of my job, but also, leading some of our programmatic work, ensuring that all the back end things happen like finances and payroll and all of those things. And then just really thinking about our future. What's our strategy? How are we advocating for workers? How are we pushing this work forward?
And speaking of the work, Nora kind of summarized the mission in the beginning, but how would y'all summarize what Good Work Austin does and how y'all do it and what the goal is?
I'll start. I say a lot that we exist for food workers. So ultimately, yes, we partner with Adam and other business owners. We have over 100 businesses in our network, but ultimately we exist for that food worker. And so we want that person to be able to have better jobs, fair treatment in the workplace. And so we have 3 different program pillars that all of that work kind of flows through. So creating healthier workplaces, having trainings, having advocacy. We also have our community kitchen, which pays workers to make healthy meals for community members, city shelters. And then we also have our Culinary workforce training program, which is looking for people that have barriers to employment and training them up through a free training program and placing them into one of our member businesses. So really kind of coming at it at all angles to really support that food worker, whether you're aspiring to be in the industry or you're already in the industry, but focused on economic mobility for those workers. And to do that, we have to partner with business owners. Business owners have to be a part of the conversation. Otherwise, you can help a worker so much, but if you're not working with the business owner, you're not going to be able to provide healthcare or PTO or predictive schedules or all of those things that are really important.
Why are food workers kind of left out of this progressive movement that we've been having as a society? What happened?
Adam, take us back 200 years.
I thought you were the history major.
I've heard this history lesson from Adam,
Okay.
so happy to jump on as well.
Yeah, I mean, it goes. The tip minimum wage was the first piece that we wanted to work on at Locadoro. Both my business partner and I had come from states that didn't have a $2.13 an hour wage. Most states, over 30 states, are still paying. It's still legal to pay $2.13 to service employees as long as they're getting tips, and then their tips have to add up to at least the federal minimum wage. Texas is one of those states, so we didn't want to do that. And the tip minimum wage goes back to Reconstruction. Recently freed, formerly enslaved people were given jobs with a $0 tip minimum wage in service, on train porters, shoe shine attendees, that sort of thing. And up until 1991, that went all the way up from $0 to $2.13. And it was initially indexed to the federal minimum wage so that every time the federal minimum wage went up, the tip minimum wage would have to stay at 50% of that. But in 1991, the National Restaurant Association lobbied to have that split. So when the first President Bush raised the federal minimum wage, the tip minimum wage stayed where it was at $2.13. So when you consider that the workforce in hospitality is majority female and majority people of color, and that over the last 35 years, Congress has done nothing to raise the tip minimum wage or eliminate it, you kind of have an idea of where our priorities are. And that hurts. That hurts to have to talk to your staff. I mean, it hurts from a policy perspective, and I think it hurts from an economic perspective to know that the biggest private employer in the country is churning out people who can't afford to live. Mm-hmm. And it hurts on a human basis. knowing that that I'm supposed to go into work and not value the people who I work with. So that's that's part of the history lesson, and then add on to that that it's an industry that traditionally has no health care, no child care, no paid sick leave, et cetera. This is something that is looked at as transitional, that some people will say, I did that when I was in college. It's not seen as a serious profession. There's a ton of inequity in between what cooks make and what servers make, depending on what restaurant you're at. It is the industry that receives the most sexual harassment complaints to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And there's a lot of data to show that tipping, that's related to tipping. States that have one fair wage receive fewer harassment complaints than states without. So, when you're dependent on tips for the majority of your wages, you're creating even more power imbalances in the restaurant between customer and guest. Between customer and server, between the server and all of the people who they work with. They need the manager to give them the right schedule. They need the host to give them to put tables in their section. They need cooks to deliver their meals on time, if they're going to get tips. So there was a lot to think about, and we thought that we were just going to be able to include a service charge, pay everybody over the federal minimum wage, and it would be fine.
Change the world.
Change the world.
Yeah.
But customers and our employees needed a lot of extra help to get there, or to still do. I mean, that tradition, the tradition of tipping is so ingrained that to try and educate people out of that is really difficult, and became much of our job early on. And then we just kept adding other pieces to it when we realized, okay, wages don't solve all the problems. We need these other benefits. We need to fight for these other benefits too.
It's wild to see like something that I think in the corporate world we take as standard operating procedure and just thrown out the window in this space. What is the incentive for Congress or the restaurant industry to not evolve?
Money.
Just on the business
in
owner, I
short.
figure that would make more of a not fun place to work with lots of churn is not a successful business.
Yeah. So it's very short-sighted, and that's a lot of our argument is that this is an unsustainable model. And you see that with the labor shortage that we've been dealing with since the pandemic. 1 million people left the industry and they haven't come back. There was an incredible opportunity to reopen with new rules. And we passed up on that because the short-sighted profits are too great for global chains to look past. There's not that much money to be made in restaurants, so you want to keep your labor and your food costs as low as possible because those are your two biggest costs. So you're buying the least expensive commodity food that you can, and if you're going to be allowed to pay your employees $2.13 or try and reinvent the wheel to get to another system, especially when you're going to be the only one doing it, is really hard and is probably not worth it for a lot of folks. If coming out of the pandemic, if we had all had to change at once, and this messaging was sent out to guests that the world is different now. Servers are making $15 an hour. Tipping is, this whole model is going to be different. It would have been easier, and that's kind of what we're fighting for. I mean, that's the revolution part. Is that this is not just one little policy change. This is a matter of understanding that we need to value these jobs differently. These people need this whole world needs to be categorized as essential workers, as they were during the pandemic, and then we start getting to a place where we're treating hospitality employees more humanely,
not like a commodity.
That's right.
Yeah. Share the same perspective.
Yeah, I don't have much
I mean, it
to
sounds like
add.
you've been, you were saying you were on the other side of this and experiencing it. How does that feel when you're on the other side? You said you worked in restaurants when you first came to Austin. McDonald's was your first job. Those are situations where maybe it's not.
Yeah, I think from the worker perspective, what's really interesting is that you just accept these as norms. When I worked in the service industry, I didn't even think to question that they weren't offering me health insurance, or I had no PTO, or I got my schedule the day before the week started. And so essentially had to plan my life around that. And asking off for things like holidays was like, you know, you got maybe one holiday off, but then you would have to work something else. And so it's just the norms are so ingrained. And like tipping, as a server would make good tips. And so like there's also benefits to like certain workers that benefit from the system. And so I think it's really complex to be a worker in this. And so kind of similar to Adam's point around education, it's consumer education, it's worker education, it's business owner education, it's all of that, knowing that we're trying to collectively work for a better system. We have held worker focus groups recently, just in the last few months, because we're doing some things around the food plan. And I mean, workers are not enjoying their experience. I can tell you that. I think there's, a lot of people didn't come back after COVID, but even the people that are still working in the industry, I think they know that it's not acceptable to not be able to access healthcare. It's not acceptable to not have stable hours or stable income. And so I think there is going to have to be a sea change in the industry. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable to have these roles long term. People are going to kind of jump ship.
I've noticed that like post-COVID, the experience of going to a restaurant, especially, I mean, it depends on which restaurant. There are still fantastic restaurants out there with great service, but a lot of them, the service has died off. And I would imagine it's a result of that, of just being too hard to actually fulfill it within this system.
And there's a lot more screens.
A lot more screens.
And there's a lot more screens. There's a lot more places where you would have interacted with a server where you don't. And there's or
Gotcha.
AI. There's a lot of times when you would have called or even emailed where you don't anymore. So there are even fewer service touch points, which just is eroding how we deliver hospitality, or how we think about hospitality. And that's, I think, another piece of this that we need to kind of fight back against.
Yeah, it's essential for the community to come out of their homes and to interact with each other. And the restaurant has always been one of those places where you go. And if it's a local restaurant, you're seeing the same faces, you see the same owners, you're able to connect with your community in a way and share a meal, which is the basis of community.
That's right.
So it makes a lot of sense. You mentioned the food plan and y'all's work as well. And I see a synergy between you saying, hey, we need a lot of people all at the same time to do this. I ran across, not the first time, but really started getting a chance to know y'all and talk to you because of the Austin Travis County food policy. And y'all have been influential, from what I can see, in helping to navigate, especially this part of it. Is that an opportunity for us to kind of rewrite the system here in Austin, or how do you view what is happening in that space?
Yeah, I think it's a lever because the plan was passed by Austin City Council, the Travis County Commissioners. It is a community mandate. Now, the plan is not funded, but it is a mandate to say these things are important and this is what the community asked for. And so specifically our work is around goal 3, which is around workers' livelihoods. So it's a bunch of different strategies to improve the conditions for workers, which is exactly what we do. So I think it helps give us that lever of when we're going to city council and asking for them to change business incentives for places that pay living wages in Austin, because there's only so many levers you can move in Texas when it comes to policy, when it comes to tax incentives and things like that. And so we're able to cite the food plan as your community has spoken, you have passed this, you've put your stamp of approval on this. We're coming to you with now a specific way to do this, partner with us and make this happen. But I think a lot of the change has to happen, at least here in Texas, at the local level.
And so at the local level, that I would imagine is not just city council, but the businesses who are there that may have not had a vested interest in making these changes. What has been the response from businesses like that? Or are y'all ignoring them for the most part and just looking for the people who want to collaborate and to open up this space? How is that going from the business perspective?
I'm not sure I understand.
So it sounded like that some of the restaurants are not necessarily incentivized to go down this path or are short-sighted in that from the perspective of making a shift to wages and healthcare and other things. Like, how much resistance is happening in there and who is actually rallying around this from a business perspective?
Yeah, we don't see businesses really fighting the food plan locally. The food plan, just to back up a little bit, is covers the entire food system. It's about buying better food. It's about institutional purchasing. It's about food access and food insecurity. It's about making sure that the food system works for more of Austin than it currently does. Availability of grocery stores in places where they don't currently exist. Things like this. So the idea of making sure that people who are working in the food system are making living wages, are being provided for, that they're not the ones who are experiencing food insecurity, which is also something that happens, which should be crazy to everybody. That's not something that we're seeing a whole lot of pushback. When I see pushback, it was going to the legislature or going to the courts to try and defend paid sick leave, and having big business lobbies showing up and saying, yeah, this is great, but it's going to make things more expensive and people are going to get fired and businesses are going to close. Or about, if we eliminate the tip minimum wage, well, then they're going to have to pay the same arguments.
So who are they lobbying for? I guess that's kind of where my question was going, is who is promoting the status quo at this point or propping it up?
Well, I already mentioned one of my boogeymen. I mean, the National Restaurant Association is one of the chief lobbyists against raising the minimum wage.
They don't represent the same restaurants that are wanting this change?
The National Restaurant Association represents a lot of restaurants. They represent a lot of independent restaurants, and they represent a lot of chains. I don't think you have to go do much work to follow the money and see, which places, for what kinds of restaurants it's most worthwhile to pay $2.13 an hour. And it's easy for me to point fingers here because they are literally the organization that lobbied to have the minimum wage stay at $2.13. But they are, local politics is not right now. Those aren't things that Austin has much control over. It's unconstitutional to change for a city to change the minimum wage in Texas. PTO was deemed unconstitutional actually in 2020, in the summer of the pandemic, when the federal government was reimbursing places for paying sick leave. The Texas State Supreme Court decided that sick leave was actually unconstitutional. So there's not a whole, we have, like Kara said, we have very few levers locally. There's a lot that we can do to educate, promote, incentivize, and get more restaurants on board for collective action.
Well, that's kind of wonderful, and that kind of answers my question, is that there is an aspect of business that is pushing against this, but as a community of Austin, it seems like everybody's pretty on board with it, and now it's just trying to figure out where you can work within the existing system to continue to implement these changes. So that's wonderful to hear that the community overall is backing it and backing these changes.
I think that's right. I think that's what the reason again to support locally owned businesses is that we work with our neighbors. We want the people who we work with to be able to continue to live in Austin. We don't want the people we work with to be driving 45 minutes because there's no public transportation here either. Are doing these things that are not great for the city. We want to keep the money here. We want to keep the tax dollars here. We don't want to ship them to wherever this other, some VC-backed mini chain in Colorado. It's better for Austin to support to support local restaurants. And most local restaurant owners want to support their employees because they see that.
That's fantastic. That's a good reason to go eat at a local restaurant.
Yeah.
You mentioned education for restaurants and for the workers. Is much done with the public as far as, these are the restaurants that are working with you, working towards benefits and better pay. So does the public need to know that? Do they know that? Is there more of a need to let people know so they'll frequent those restaurants?
Yeah, that is a great question. And ironically, a part of the food plan, strategy 3.7, which is to recognize restaurants, food businesses that are already doing great work. So yes, we are focused on hopefully uplifting those restaurants. You can go to our website. You can click where to eat and drink in Austin. You can find all of our member businesses. Something else that we're doing for the first time this year is we're having an awards ceremony in August, on August 25th. And we're giving awards out for essentially doing good business. There's a lot of food awards in Austin, but there's none around, treating your employees well, creating those healthy workplaces. So we're doing our part to uplift those places. But I do think on kind of broader consumer education, a lot of times people are finding out more about tipping and minimum wages when they visit our member restaurants. And so that is something across the U.S. We're a part of some national groups that we are talking a lot about how can we make consumer education more accessible to people so they know when they go to a restaurant why it might be important to go somewhere where there's a tip included, where, maybe you're, the Draft House, is an example. The movie theater just moved towards that this year. And, the audience reaction was a little rough at first. I think people get that sticker shock of seeing that because, when you leave a tip, you just feel a little bit more autonomy over it. And so I think just more consumer education across the board.
What did they do? What did the Alamo do?
They instituted an 18% gratuity across the board. And we have the same thing that we hear from our member businesses. They've instituted, a set gratuity, and they've gotten, disparaging comments on their Yelp and things like that. And so how can we be proactive outside of even our member restaurants with messaging? That's something we're working on with a national coalition called MORE on how can we disseminate that, because a lot of people just, that's a new topic for them, which is totally understandable.
Is that an acronym for something?
MORE, yes. It's
Good luck.
something or a movement to organize restaurant equity.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Part of this obviously is the customer education, but it sounds like y'all are also educating the workers in this space. Can you tell us a little bit more about the programs that you're doing? I know you guys have a community kitchen and a few other kind of peer support programs.
Yeah, so most of our worker education falls under our healthy workplaces. So we offer a variety of trainings. Our kind of bread and butter training is our Speak Up, Be Heard, which goes through everything from labor laws to having better communication in the workplace, how to organize in your workplace, all of the things that, we want to make sure people know and to ensure that they can have a healthy experience working in the food and beverage industry. But, we're really responsive to what workers need. So this year we did Know Your Rights trainings around, if, ICE is showing up at your restaurant. We've done more things on harassment prevention. We've talked about wage ladders and increasing wages. We've talked about access to healthcare, financial literacy. So it really just depends on, at the moment, what our members are asking for, which include workers. And so just being responsive to their needs, but all of that kind of flows through our worker education pillar.
And regarding the community kitchen, y'all are teaching people how to be chefs and bringing more people into the industry?
That's our culinary workforce training. So our community kitchen, that program actually has been going on since COVID. So at the time of COVID, restaurants were shutting down. Workers were losing their jobs. And so the restaurant industry was able to come together with the city of Austin and really figure out how can our restaurants serve the community during this time. There was also a lot of people facing food insecurity. And so between the city shelters, emergency distribution, Austin ISD, am I forgetting any partnerships? lots of different community, city-run partnerships, we were able to have restaurants do about 600,000 meals during COVID for the year. We are doing about 200,000 still. So obviously COVID, there was this increased need, but we are still doing that program. And so we work with about a dozen restaurants every single week. We serve 3 meals a day to Austin area shelters. We serve 2 shelters right now. And so those are existing restaurants and existing food workers. How it benefits workers is we ask that all of the workers involved in making the meals are making a living wage, which we consider $22 an hour for the city of Austin. And so it's really helping create sustainable jobs in the industry, as well as then serving a community need. And in this case, the majority of our meals are going out to Austin shelters.
So you're kind of helping the business out by bringing more work to them, but
additional
also asking,
revenue, yes, to kind of offset those costs, because we know that at the end of the day, it's incredibly expensive. If the person down the street's paying $2.13 an hour and you're trying to pay $22 an hour, it's going to be expensive to keep those wages. And so this program is driving additional revenue back into our restaurants. And so, overall,
Win-win.
the program has driven about $10 million, but last year alone, it was, almost $2 million.
What has been the reaction to the restaurants that are participating?
Adam's restaurants are participating.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we helped start it in 2020. It was originally with the Austin Ed Fund, and then spread to the APH. Had a couple of Austin Public Health had a couple of contracts as well, and then a lot of work happened during the winter storm. We had
a rough run there for a minute, didn't we? On the foods perspective.
There we coordinated 100,000 meals from 60 different restaurants in just those 2 weeks. And it was a lifeline. It is a lifeline for the restaurants that are involved, and for the employees who are able to stay at work for that time. It's continued to be a really important part of both of our restaurants. I mean, not just the revenue, but there are a couple of people who have jobs because of the program. I mean, folks who are prepping breakfast, which we wouldn't normally serve, and it's also important to the culture of the restaurant. Everyone who's there has some role in it. They see the meals that are going out. Generally speaking, we're going to eat those meals as family meal with the staff on the day that we're preparing them. And then they also, a lot of the staff is involved in delivering them. So they're going to the transitional shelters and seeing who the meals are being handed to. And something that I talked about a lot during the pandemic that I think is really important for us to keep going is that there are 2 circles: the circle of places that feed people who can afford to pay, and the circle of places that feed people who can't afford to pay. And they didn't really talk to each other at all until the pandemic. And in order for us to have a working food system, they need to. There's too many restaurants spread out that have too much food and too many resources to just ignore and say, well, that's for people who can pay, and then all of this over here, this food bank and this Meals on Wheels are for the people who can't. And so having our staff understand that and having our staff see that is a really important part of the program, I think.
Yeah, I would say so. It's something I've noticed in being out in the field distributing meals is the quality over the past probably 6 years that I've been involved in this space has gone up significantly. And I think that's a wonderful signal to our community that not only are we feeding people that are hungry, but we're doing a better job at the quality and the love that we're putting into those meals. And I think as someone who is on the other side of that, receiving something where you can see that care, love, attention, good quality ingredients has gone into it, that's a different meal. And I think a much more powerful meal. So we appreciate what y'all are doing in that space. Is there still a large need in that space? Are there enough restaurants doing this? Are there more people that need it? Like, what is the situation?
Great question. There are definitely more people that need the meals. However, I think the complexity of just growing the program to meet that need kind of something that I think a lot of nonprofits deal with.
I mean, a couple 100,000 meals in a year is no joke.
Yeah. So the program, yes, will around double this year over the next year because we've kind of expanded our partnerships, but there is more need. We hear that from our community partners. We hear that from our mutual aid groups. Because we do pay the workers to make the meals and pay the restaurants, there's that kind of like barrier of like, well, where does the funding come from? But we're looking to expand. We know that having, as Adam said, having kind of both of those communities joined, but also having that circular economy of, well, this goes back to paying someone, and we have people making the meals that were in our culinary training program who came from maybe one of those transitional shelters. Like, it's completely full circle.
That's amazing.
which is what we want.
Yep. Yeah, everybody wins in that situation, including those who may not be participating in it. That's your environment, and this is where you eat, and these are the people that you run into, and if they're happy, you're going to have a better life. So that's awesome. Tell us a little, Nora, did you have something?
Well, I was going to say, tell us one more time where the funding's coming from.
So we do, to operate the program, it comes from, our community funders, our foundations. We have a partnership right now with Austin Wine and Food Foundation funds some of it. So that kind of does the administrative part. And then we do have meal contracts with those City of Austin shelters to cover for some of the cost of the meal as well, to reimburse the restaurant.
That's great.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of like social entrepreneurship, revenue driving, and then a little bit of like traditional funding to
It's
operate the
diversified,
program.
and I think that makes it more sustainable in the long run.
That's the idea. So
Yeah. And of course, individual and corporate donations are accepted as well.
yes.
They are very helpful.
Yeah. I mean, and one thing that we've always talked about is an external facing cafe that could be used as a training space, and would also be open to guests, and would be an amazing space for some of the education that you asked about, so that we could use it as a place for customers to really interact with our goals and see them and see us succeeding in winning, and would also be what was the other thing?
training kitchen for culinary trainees, community kitchen meals, external facing cafe, trainings for workers, upskilling for workers.
And I think we're definitely curious about you hit on the community kitchen aspect, but underlying that, it sounds like the culinary training is a part of lifting someone who may have been receiving the meals into a space where they are now a part of the system, and hopefully having learned the things that are being taught in these spaces that are able to continue with the culture shift there. So can you tell us a little bit about the culinary training?
Yeah, and I was going to say the end of that was that you talked about, it was the revenue that those sorts of things exist in other places. There's one in Dallas and Fort Worth and San Antonio. There's a couple in New Orleans that we've looked at in New York and Seattle and Cleveland, and very few of them have the restaurant start with a restaurant background, and that I think is one of the most exciting things about diversifying our revenue is the idea of creating a nonprofit cafe that's run by a restaurant organization, and the possibility, we would like to be able to be as any nonprofit is going to say this, we'd like to be as self-sufficient as possible, and I think that's one of the things that should help get us there.
Yeah, that's a great transition into culinary workforce training. So I think what's unique about all of our programs is that, to Adam's point, it is starting with restaurants and, food business owners. And so that program came about because of the labor shortages after COVID, and, identifying that there's a lot of people looking for work. There's a lot of people that have employment barriers, whether that might be their, exiting homelessness or foster care or the criminal justice system, whatever that might be. They're looking for a job. And then on the flip side, there are jobs. There are jobs available for these people. And, ideally, because these restaurants are working with Good Work Austin, they're able to pay those living wages. And so we also don't want to put someone back in a situation where
Send it back.
they're
to
falling
wolves.
back into that cycle and that system. And so we just finished our 6th cohort of the training program.
Congratulations.
It's very exciting. And so it's just rapidly grown. For each cohort, we take in 12 trainees. We receive anywhere between 60 and 80 applications for that cycle. And those are people like we're interviewing. That isn't even just, apply. We're really engaging with these people. And so trying to find people that are looking to have a job in this industry, have a passion for this work, and then also are kind of experiencing some barrier. And it can be pretty, we give some fluid definitions to that, but are really looking for that kind of hand up into the industry. And so they're going through a 9-week training program. They're meeting some of the best chefs in Austin. They're touring restaurants, and really learning from business owners themselves. So that's what's, again, a little bit different about everything we do, because we are created by restaurants and food businesses and workers. They're a part of everything that we do. So they're there throughout the program. They're there on career day. They're the people giving the tours. There's the people coming in and doing guest chef opportunities. And so at every step of the process, we have those owners in the room.
That's a lot. Y'all are doing a lot.
We have a lot of unpaid volunteers. So
That helps, right? And it helps prop up. It's interesting in the nonprofit space is I know when I first started, I'm like, oh, volunteers will take care of everything. And they can't. It's not actually possible. You need money to have people that are focused on these problems and these challenges day after day after day and not getting taken away to go deal with something else. But the volunteers do add a tremendous amount to it. And having the passion that you're talking about, the synergistic passion that exists, is the people that are working on this are in the restaurant industry. They are wanting to be into this space. I think that is really where the cultural shift can come from. Because if you're putting people in there that don't want to be there, you're going to feel that when you walk in the door. And it sounds like y'all are doing an amazing job of maintaining that synergy and building systems that allow that to continue flowing through the system. So that's great work.
Ideally, it's part of that same getting the two circles of places that prepare food together and getting our cooks to go into the kitchen, to go into the training kitchen and do a demo for a day, or when they have the stages come, being able to interact with them and understand, feel like the skilled workers that they are, and feel like they can use their skills to teach and to do other things with them. I really value the time that I get to spend going into the training kitchen and doing mock interviews or answering questions or giving tours. And I've definitely seen that that's the case with the other folks that work with me who have gone in and taken those opportunities.
When we talk about all of the work that's going on in this space, it is a lot. It sounds like y'all are very busy, and it sounds like you're also running a business while founding this organization. How has your work with Good Work Austin evolved and changed over the years from, I would imagine when you first got started, you might have been a little bit more buried in it. Are you still? Have you found a way to keep it sustainable? What's kind of happening in that space?
It was. Why are you laughing?
I'm so curious to hear this answer.
It was fun in the beginning because it was just advocacy before the pandemic, when we were just working to get paid sick leave passed, and then we were working to kind of create the organization. And that was a lot of what we talked about, was that there was going to be the advocacy component, and then there was going to be providing support. So I was doing a lot of wage model consulting with restaurants and talking to restaurants, mostly here, but also then it turned out to be across the country, about how to set up service charges and different ways to pay higher wages. So it was pretty focused. During the pandemic was the most satisfying because it was a lifeline, like I said, for all these places, and getting those contracts and making those things work, making the community kitchen work for restaurants. I know kept a lot of restaurants safe, kept a lot of restaurants in business, kept a lot of people employed. And again, it was pretty focused, but the more we did, the more there was to do. And it was definitely too much for a volunteer restaurant owner workforce who, once we were reopening and realized that reopening was going to be every bit as hard as opening was the first time, even harder, because there were so many different stages to the reopening. And now Kara does everything, and I just show up for podcasts. So it's great.
Not true.
No, it's amazing to get to work with somebody who has nonprofit administrative and executive experience, and have focus and have a strategic plan, and know that our tax forms are being are being filed correctly.
It's important.
Yeah, and to be able to follow direction a little bit, and use the contacts that I've made or the resources that we have to be able to help the organization.
Was that transition hard, or was it easy, or in the middle?
That may be a better question for Kara. For me, it was it's
Was it hard to let go?
hard. Not once. Not once. There was someone who was so much more capable at so many things than I was. So no,
Okay.
I mean,
Made an impression.
yeah, I
I have few talents. What is running a nonprofit?
which you described.
I have the perfect job for that. Yeah.
Yeah, which you described already is actually like 9 jobs. So that's a lot, and so it's at this point there's a lot of work. So in that regard, it's not easy, but I am just really thrilled with where the organization is and what I think we're capable of over the next couple of years.
Well, it's one of the things that I like to focus on is the sustainability of our community partners. And we have a lot of them, and you see a lot that have been around for a long time, and you see new ones that are coming in. And I think that transmission of what it takes to create something sustainable is super important for people that may see an opportunity or a place that there is need within the community. And getting into that is one thing, starting to do the work is another, and then making it sustainable over time is another. And I think it takes a lot of humility at certain points to be like, there's somebody better at this than me. Let's go. Because there's an attachment, I think, a lot of times to the work. It is such fulfilling work. It is beautiful to watch it. And sometimes I don't think we want to let that go. So I know I was talking with you earlier about at the food policy meeting that you made a comment on your way out, and I think you were heading back to work, and this had gone on for, I think it was like probably 2.5 hours in the morning on a Friday, and there's a full room of people. But some people have jobs, and some people this is their job, and there's different aspects of everybody's career. But you made a comment on your way out to me, and you said, I've done all that I can today, and now I need to go back to work. And I thought that was just, it was an admirable thing to say. And I think it's something that I think as community members who are trying to help, that we recognize that at a certain point, you do have to make sure that you're turning around, taking care of yourself, your family, because otherwise there's nothing to do this for. And that energy is really important to maintain in these spaces, is being humble enough to let go when it's time, being humble enough to recognize that someone else can do this work maybe better than I can, and also recognizing when it's time to take care of yourself or your family. So just thought that was an admirable quality, and it's wonderful to see that you've found someone that can come in and do a better job at making sure the taxes are taken care of and that the organization stays
Just the
afloat.
taxes.
So much more than that. So much more
I
than
have
that.
spent a lot of time on our 990. Well, and I think what's interesting is, a lot of times nonprofits are not kind of made from the community. And so in this case, it really was community members organized around an issue that they felt needed to change. And then they made a nonprofit rather than, someone coming in and being like, oh, well, I read this, this data and like there's an issue here. Let's go in and solve it. And so when I think you have a nonprofit that is resident led or community led, there's always a balance that's always going to have to continue to exist. And I think as we grow, we're still trying to figure that out. We have a leadership council, we have a board that has restaurant owners on it. So how can we keep that really authentic to who we are? That to me is really important moving forward.
That is a great segue to my next question. So another of our nonprofit partners is On Point Reentry Consortium, and they help formerly incarcerated people get back into the workforce, get back into society. Have you had any interaction with that population?
Yes, that mostly flows through our culinary workforce training. So we work with about 40 community partners. Some of them are reentry organizations or people that are kind of supporting kind of long-term opportunity and stability for people that are exiting the criminal justice system. And so that is a really good place for people to kind of come into our network. Not saying that they can't come from just working at a member business, but we are able to support them with more hands-on training, more employment support, more connections, relationships. I do think probably that's also an area where they're coming in through our membership as well, but that's probably the number one place where we're able to support that community.
They do some great trainings.
Yes, I have heard of that. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Outside of that, what does the future look like for y'all?
Wow. So there's two things we're excited about. One we haven't talked about as much today, which is our healthcare pilot. So we were able to, because of our business owners and our food workers, we were able to advocate last summer for a healthcare premium assistance program, which the easiest way to describe it is if you're familiar with HAM, which is the Health Alliance for Austin Musicians, they have a program where you can get free or low-cost healthcare through them through a partnership with Central Health, which is our Travis County-run healthcare system. We propose doing something similar for food workers. Food workers are the highest uninsured group, occupational group in Travis County. When we surveyed them in 2023, about half of food workers said that they didn't have access to health insurance. And so going to these board meetings, having business owners speak, we were able to get Central Health to agree to a pilot. And so this year, 25 food workers have free healthcare through Sendero health plans. They also receive case management each month. They, if you need help getting a prescription or finding a primary care provider. And so this is the first year of that pilot. We're really excited to continue to grow. For example, HAM serves about 1,200 musicians. So we're at 25. So the plan right now is to double that pilot this next year. And we're really excited because this is a consistent need that we hear from our business owners. As premiums go up, as access to, healthcare gets a little bit more complex with the federal government, this is consistently a growing need among workers. And if workers can't be healthy to show up to their workplace, if they can't do their, preventative healthcare, a lot of times that causes a loss of their job. And then they're going to, go back into that, system that maybe they were trying to get out of, like the people that we're helping with in our workforce training programs. So this, to me, is a critical part of our mission. I think beyond that, we're also looking at supporting employers with healthcare. We did some work around a group association plan last year that we'll pick back up, as well as looking for other funding to provide healthcare for workers that make a little bit more than the Central Health program.
And something that we've been talking about, one of our first restaurant panels going back, again, before the pandemic was about different healthcare options. And so we've done a lot of consulting over the years with restaurants about how to provide different types of healthcare that their employees would want, that their employees would actually utilize and that would be affordable for them. So I think continuing that conversation with Sendero, with Central Health, about what other things that we can offer that might be adjacent to traditional insurance, that might be less expensive but more practical for hospitality employees who are by and large younger, 25 to 35, and need different things. So I think we do a lot of work with childcare as well, and changing the way that healthcare is delivered, changing the way that childcare is delivered, so that it can work for our industry, is something that we talk a lot about and have been working towards, and have seen some good small victories. So I think there's more on the horizon. I generally think that we try not to just Band-Aid broken systems, and most people are probably going to agree that healthcare delivery is pretty broken. So instead of, what can we continue to do now that we have these relationships to create something that works better for at least our Travis County hospitality industry?
Yeah, Band-Aids take resources from long-term fixes, and sometimes they're necessary, obviously, but a lot of times I think we try to stick Band-Aids on many things, and you're dumping resources into something that's just going to peel off and go in the trash.
It's a great way to start.
Yep.
It's a great way to start and make sure that people who aren't covered, who are the most vulnerable, are going to be getting help. We have an employee who absolutely would have missed at least a month of work if he hadn't had insurance this year.
You're getting replaced at that point if you're not showing up for work for a month.
I mean, we would have known that there was a thing, and that he needed time, and we would have. I mean, he wouldn't have lost his job with us.
But in a
he would have lost
situation.
his. Yeah, I mean, he would have probably somewhere else.
Was he part of that pilot
and
program?
He was.
Yeah.
And he was able to, he was able to overcome the thing I mean, it was an accident based thing. But something that would have really derailed his life.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the Band-Aid is important. And remembering that the Band-Aid isn't the end is also important.
Yeah, those are beautiful little small victories that keep you going. Are there any other victories that y'all have had over the past year or so that have really kind of put fuel into the fire?
I mean, I think the other thing we're really excited about is just the overall growth of all of our programming. And so Adam mentioned it earlier about because we've had so much growth in our culinary training program and so much support from the community and from business owners, and then as well as our community kitchen, we are looking to grow into our own space next year. That could open up opportunities for, this external facing cafe. And to your point earlier, having a space for community to gather, whether that's around, consumer education, but also just around sharing a meal and learning about these programs and learning about how to support your local food workers and your local coffee shops and independently owned restaurants. And so I think that is just going to take the work that we do to the next level. Potentially catering. You could host your family reunion and have, our trainees making the food. And so it's really just going to elevate what we've seen in other places around the country. But what'll be a little bit different about ours is, helped created by restaurant owners. Our owners are a part of everything we do. Our food workers are a part of everything we do. So I think we're just really excited about, as we grow this, we're going to be able to hopefully just bring more people to the table, and some of those advocacy changes that are going to make those systemic long-term changes, we'll be able to have that kind of power to do that.
How many people have gotten jobs from the training program?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I don't know off the top of my head, but we have so we have an 88% placement rate. So out of 12, typically around each cohort, about 10 out of the 12 get employment within 90 days.
Like 60 or so?
Yeah. So I'd have to do the math.
Yeah, not each cohort has been a full 12 people.
Yep.
Yes,
They started smaller, and we've built up
recently.
Yeah.
But yes, you can go in Austin restaurants, Good Work Austin restaurants, and you may run into our trainees. I run into them.
Amazing.
How would we know?
great.
Do they?
Right. You
You-
wouldn't know because they look like
They look like everybody else.
they look like
Addams
if you
Family
go to
joke.
Bambino, you can run into our
That's
friends.
another promotion, though. They could wear a little
Yes, they will
badge
be
or
at
something.
our August 25th event where we're celebrating workers, business owners, everyone doing good work. We will have our trainees are going to be there.
I'm really proud of the work we've done training on immigration this year. That's been really hard, and we were ready to do it right after the election in 24. We had relationships with Texas Civil Rights Project, and then eventually ACLU and the Texas Immigration Legal Center and American Gateways and Workers Defense Project, and we're able to get Know Your Rights trainings. We're able to get signage out to restaurants. We're able to and even more than that, every time something happens, because all of these cases are a little bit different. Owners are able to come to us first and say, "What do I do? This is what's happened. This is where our employee is. This is what they got emailed. This is the letter that they received," and we're able to connect them to some of those kinds of organizations that can actually help them. And we tried to work with the city as well to let the city know that this is really a responsibility of theirs. But it's very much like what happened during the pandemic, where it was really up to small businesses to work together to figure out what the best way to reopen was, what the protocols should be, how to deal with PPP and all the different weird funding mechanisms and that were happening during that time. That's very much where we've been left, and there's a large immigrant population working in restaurants, whether they're documented or not. They are getting targeted as if they are undocumented. So to be able to be a resource for those businesses has been really important. I think we've done a pretty good job. Unfortunately, there's a lot to do there.
Doing a lot, but there's a lot more.
Are we better
Yeah.
prepared for the next pandemic or the next
Winter storm.
crisis?
Yes.
Okay,
And
great. I don't know.
I mean, we've seen a couple of the communication around the things that we've seen is better. So like winter weather, extreme summer, extreme heat, storms, the communication around that and the places that are connected to each other is much better. It was non-existent. And now there is a network between the city and nonprofits that exists. There's a lot of things that can happen though I know they've done a lot of work to kind of game plan some of that, but
Each time is different.
each time's a little bit different. I mean, here's tangent. Last summer with the floods, we saw there was a lot of frustration because we were ready for something that was going to happen in Austin or even in Travis County. But as soon as something happened just a little bit over there, I felt like we were very lost again with how to provide support, and getting the different counties to coordinate. It was just like it was one more level of communication that hadn't been, I don't think had been dealt with, or we hadn't seen during the pandemic or during the storm. So that's a good example of just like every time you should be learning something each time, hopefully.
Seems like there's been more efforts in communities to kind of establish their own crisis response. My neighborhood's really good about that, about networking and finding out what our needs are.
Yeah, I think the rise of mutual aid groups has
Yeah.
really been big. I think just then plugging them in with like really formalized systems that exist, like when the city gives out money and, like how can they give out money? It's just, there's some complexity that I don't think the city is completely figured out of how to work with or like a community organized group.
Yeah, there's a strong sense of agency, but then that agency can kind of get outside of where the resources are and the communication is, and that makes it challenging, which I think that sense of agency is very good what happens with mutual aid, but I also think you need an intertwined effort to go, because those are the grassroots on the ground talking to their neighbors, and then it continues to work its way up the system, and you can see as when it is being done within a good system or a well-honed system, a lot can be done and very efficiently. So I think it's in all of our incentive to have a sense of agency, but also be talking to each other and making sure that those systems are established and maintained.
And you brought up this conversation started because of small victories, and this any of this kind of work, this community building, building crisis responses is constant. And it's building a community around elections. These aren't things that happen that can happen in a month. This isn't something that happens in a big get out the vote push or something horrible just happened. Let's figure out how to we need to respond to it right now. It's ongoing every day, a little bit at a time, and then you see. You see small victories all the time.
Being active in the community helps. I think there's good excuse for people to get out and do that work. So, and hopefully connect with y'all in helping to further your work. Are there any volunteer opportunities, events, anything else that our listeners should know about what you guys have coming up and how they can get involved?
Yeah, great question. So we do have our first big event of the year coming up August 25th at Still Austin. It's going to be to celebrate all of these businesses, the workers doing all of this good work, celebrate those wins we've had this year. So the community is welcome to buy a ticket online. We would love to see them there. All of the proceeds go to benefit local food workers with things like access to healthcare and all of the great stuff we talked about. We also have our We Do Good Work tours. Those are where we go behind the scenes with our member businesses. We just did one with Rosen's Bagels. You got to meet the owner of Rosen's, see him make a bagel, talk to him about his cream cheese. You got to leave with all of those things.
So that's a public
Those are
event
public events.
That's right.
That sounds cool.
And so they sell out usually in like a day or two. They're incredibly popular. So we're having one with Oseo, which is sushi, in a few weeks. So definitely check out our website, goodworkaustin.org for those. You can sign up for a newsletter. Volunteering, we do have specific volunteer opportunities. So if you're a chef or you're a foodie or you have like human resources experience, that might be in our culinary workforce training program. So reach out. I think if you're looking to volunteer, we are happy to try to plug you in with something. Sometimes our events, we have volunteers as well. But the number one thing I always tell people to do, go to our member restaurants. Ultimately, they need to exist in our community gathering places. They need to exist so we have workers that are paid well. And also, we want to have good food. We're known as a food city. So you can go to our website, goodworkaustin.org, where to eat and drink. And I mean, it'll probably take you months to go through the list. So
over 100.
Over 100.
Right?
I believe in you. I think you can do it. Just be really hungry every day.
And they're all over the
And
place.
thirsty.
There's
Yeah.
bars, there's restaurants, there's coffee shops, there's high end, there's low end. I'm gonna
Medium
the
end.
next there's still those two. The next We Do Good Work together is at Uroko. Oseo.
sorry.
That's okay.
Uroko. Apologies.
Oseo was the last one. I just don't.
Wow.
I just want to
Adam
make
caught
sure
me.
that
we did have one at Oseo. It was a kimchi making class.
Oh,
yeah.
So we
Yeah.
try to have
So
things that
pretty
are
cool.
a little unique that you maybe have never seen before in Austin. We're cool.
you get a chance to actually learn something.
Yes, you learn something, and then also learn about their business model of why did they decide. In Tom's case, Tom Rosen, it was because some of his workers struggled with finding health care, and so he really wanted to come into Good Work Austin and change that. But it's a different story for all of our owners, which I think is just this kind of beautiful reason of why they've banded together. Adam's just angry. That's his reason.
It's true.
It provides a
Yeah.
lot of energy.
Yes.
Yeah,
you
it's
need,
not.
you need one angry person behind any cause.
I'm very pleasant on podcasts, I think. And we're not allowed to have coffee in this room.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is, I mean,
Caffeine withdrawals are kicking in. Are we going to have to all get out of here pretty quick?
no, it's okay. I'd been working in restaurants for a long time, but it wasn't until I owned one and realized and felt the challenges. I mean, I said earlier that it was important for me to keep the place open because I wanted to continue to have a job, but I wanted to continue to have a job that I was proud of, where people were, my partner and I had worked at a restaurant in New York where he said, these are the things that we won't compromise on in terms of how many people are staffed at any given time, because this is how many we think we need to provide good service no matter what, or where we're going to get our food from. This is this level of sustainability is we won't compromise. So my partner and I had a couple of those when we opened Locadoro, and it was hard. It was really hard, and I knew that there were people there. I knew that there were places right down the block that were buying cheaper food and paying their employees less, and that meant that it was invariably easier for them to stay in business because they were doing the exact same thing as me, but spending less, which was hurting Austin. And I think that's the best way to. I mean, how could you not be angry about that? So that was something that Kara asked early on, and I guess she has clung to
Your old filmmaker.
clung to that answer. Yeah,
It's a wonderful motivational talk right there. It matters. Like one of the things that I noticed in kind of our system in general, in many places, culturally, we're looking for the commodification of our community, and we're after the cheapest thing, which is not always the best thing, and there are costs that are associated with certain behaviors that we don't see, and you start to see this especially in the restaurant industry, as you've pointed out, that by not spending money in certain places, you're actually harming the community, and that the cost of doing good business is different than the cost of just doing business. And so I think it's essential for us to not just look at the end cost of how much did my meal cost and, oh, it's $2 cheaper over here. The question is, how is this business affecting the community? And is it actually raising the standards for everybody in it? Or did I get a cheap meal and my belly's full, but I don't care how it got here or who served it to me or what they're going to go home to. And I think that lack of caring is something that's not healthy for our community, and that we need more businesses and consumers to look through the lens of what did that purchase do to my community? Did it improve it or did it harm it?
and I want to say, and I think this is a really important part. The end of that for a long time was, well, if you want good food, then you just have to pay more for it, and it's better for the environment, and so it's just going to be more expensive. I don't agree. You should not. Our lasagna should not be that much more expensive. It should not be more expensive than anybody else's, but because of how food subsidies work, and because of how the farm bill works, and because of because of a lot of things, buying grain from Barton Springs Mill, which is right here, costs way more than it would for me to buy grain that was processed a couple thousand miles away at a bigger.
Sometimes not even on the same continent,
right?
And ship it.
That's
There's
right.
no way it
I
doesn't
could probably,
work that way.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I could have definitely bought Ukrainian flour for less than I could buy, and the same is true of everything. The same is true of the produce that we get from Boggy Creek or House Bar, which are literally walking distance from Bambino, and that shouldn't be. That's it's counterintuitive, and we're talking about things that are bad for Austin. That is bad for America. That we are disincentivizing small, urban, sustainable farms because their produce, it costs so much for them to run, for them to run those farms, and then it costs so much more for the restaurants to buy from them, and so we're we're stuck with that, saying, well, if you want to keep us in business, then you have to pay more. And I promise we're working to try and change that, because I don't want to. That's not where it should go. That's not the right. That's trickle up, which is sounds like a horrible economics policy.
Gravity doesn't work here.
Right.
Yeah. It is. It is strange, and I think it takes an entire community to recognize these things and to band together and to work in the way that y'all are working with the community to get everybody on board and say, hey, that's enough. Like, let's change the system where we can until the system itself starts to shift. So we appreciate that work that y'all are doing. One of the things that we like to end with is story time. So I'm very curious to see what some of the most, or one of the most memorable stories or shareable stories or whatever you feel like talking about, and whoever wants to start first, feel free to go. What's made an impact on you?
I just talked for a
Okay. There's a few. I think some of our culinary workforce training program participants are pretty amazing, but the one I wanted to share today was about our healthcare pilot. And so we talked about one person, but a person that we haven't talked about, which has been really helping us try to advocate to move this program forward, is a baker that's in our network. She works at one of our member businesses, and she was really, a part of some of our conversations around the food plan, kind of showing up in those spaces, talking about how things were difficult for workers. But I think hearing her personal story about why the healthcare pilot was important really kind of took me back to that time of, working somewhere that didn't offer healthcare, thinking about, okay, how can you kind of manage that risk? And so just sharing her story of, thinking about how long can I go without healthcare? How can I, weigh out, how sick can I essentially get? And I just think that's a story so many people identify with that have struggled with accessing care, of like, you're essentially gambling with your future. You're gambling with your ability to maybe show up for work, like we talked about. You're gambling with like potentially your future, and all of the complexities that come with that. And so for me, her feeling so supportive to advocate for this program moving forward. So she has shown up at Central Health Board of Managers meetings with us. She's talked to the news several times. And just her why is that it shouldn't be this way. And she's going to do everything in her power so other people can take advantage of a program like this. And so it just seems so obvious that we shouldn't be treating people this way, that we shouldn't be forcing people into these situations where, one day their life could be, ruined by medical debt. But I just think I feel like a lot of people get to take advantage of certain programs, but maybe they don't necessarily see like the pay it forward aspect of like, well, what can I do to even make sure even more people, because again, they're probably busy and they have a million things going on. And so just seeing how important this was to her for it to be refunded and expanded, kind of fills me up to be like, okay, even after this year, we're going to keep fighting, and even after that year. And so it just doesn't have to be that way. Like when her and I were talking about it, like, it's just insane that we have put people in this position. And she has such a good relationship with the owner of her business, and like understands the complexity of why they're not able to offer health insurance or even higher wages. And so I think that when we think about people that are working in the industry, they understand, but they still are, willing and wanting to kind of push the greater forces forward. And I think until we have universal health care, we're going to keep pushing Central Health. But I love her spirit, and she's amazing.
That pay it forward mentality is something that I see consistent in this space as someone receives assistance, aid, help, finds a community, whatever it is, and through that community, they end up becoming a part of that community and start feeding back into it. And that It's one of the beauties of mutual aid is that when the community supports and says, hey, we have these resources, they're there, take them. Some people are going to take them and not be able to give back, and that's okay.
Yeah.
There are people, however, that will. And when you see that complete circle go, it is so inspiring.
Yeah.
Every single time it's inspiring.
Because who wants to go to a like public comment meeting, like essentially a Parks and Rec episode? Like nobody wants to do that. And the fact that people are not only like they're showing up not to serve themselves but to serve others, that's beautiful.
Sure.
What's for dinner tonight?
Oh, at my house?
Either of you? What do you do when you get home after a
I
long
have
day?
a new baby, so every night is a like a meltdown of like, what are we doing for dinner? Who is going to take the baby? Are we going out and grabbing food? And the majority of times we are grabbing food from a Good Work Austin business.
All right.
So
I'm going to work from here, so I don't know. I don't know what family meal is going to be. We just changed our menu today. We're not an Italian restaurant for July.
Oh, wow.
We are.
Big shift.
We're a Southeast Asian fusion restaurant for the month
Fun.
of July.
Whoa.
this feels like a joke, but it's real. He has told me this before.
Yeah. So we're. It was what chef decided she wanted to make in the middle of the summer when it's like this and people don't get as excited about pasta. So I'm excited to see.
Are people going to walk in the door and go, what happened?
Some will. Yeah, we've done our best to try and promote it, but you can only do so much, and there are still a lot of noodles on the menu.
Great.
And what I've said is that it will read a lot more different than it will taste, because we're not really an Italian American or even a traditional regionally Italian restaurant in the first place. So there were a lot of things that were on the menu that, I mean, there were pasta, but otherwise, other than that, I don't know that you would have necessarily coded them as, they would have been coded as Italian. So if people are willing to play along, I think they'll be pretty happy with a different kind of meatball and some different pasta dishes. So, and that was actually, and then tonight is also Pay What You Will night. And we're doing that. We're going to continue that on every Tuesday with the new menu. And that was, I think, the first time I met you.
Yeah. Yep. I came in there with Megan Barber from Team CTX.
Yeah.
That was fascinating.
And
I've
a couple of,
seen that before.
A handful of previously unhoused folks. And we started doing that, kind of getting back to the last question. This is my story time. Because we spent last year trying to figure out affordability and knowing that prices of everything were going up, and they were going up really quickly, and they were going up unpredictably, and we're not an airline. We don't get to change pricing every other week. We can't be like, oh, it's, the frittata is cheaper now because eggs are back down. That's not how this works. So we decided on Tuesday, we were just going to take a gamble, and on Tuesday start doing a Pay What You Will night, because we knew that there were just a lot of people who couldn't afford to eat at Locadoro anymore, and now we've been doing it for, I guess, since the beginning of December, and it's amazing. The mix of folks who comes in is really beautiful. Everybody has a good time because we've removed the risk of worrying that you just paid your babysitter and now you're going out to dinner, and I hope it's really good, and the conversation better be good too, and like all the things, and and by and large people end up paying pretty close to what the menu price was, but I've had great conversations with people who have come in about why we're doing it, and being incredulous. My son saying, "But wait a minute, people are just going to not pay anything." I was like, "I don't think so. I don't think that's what's going to happen," and it hasn't been. There are some people who do, and who do pay next to nothing, and that's okay. That's supposed to be that's the point. And even that part has been fun, like getting people and getting the staff to disarm the guests to where they can say, go ahead, you can order whatever you want. Like, you're deciding between these two things, get them both. It's okay. That's the point. Has been fun. It's nice.
Is anybody else doing that in town?
I mean, nobody else. There's one for-profit restaurant that I know of nationally that is doing it, because there was a Times article about them. They're a diner in Minnesota that's like a breakfast and lunch place, and there was an article within the last month, and everybody sent it to me. Yeah.
So like copycat.
That's right. I think they do it I think that's their whole model though. They're a pay what you will restaurant all the time.
Yeah, I don't know of any other Austin places.
No, but
It's quite the trust fall into the community.
Yeah. It was so many things that we do are though. Like every time we put on an event, it is, and that was sort of my pitch to my partner. Was, every time we try and do anything, it's a big gamble, and usually that involves doing something different and maybe bringing somebody in from another state to cook with us, or partnering with another organization that we're going to give some of the money away to. All these things, and this was like, we're not going to do anything different. We're making the same food, and if it is a disaster, then we've sacrificed a couple months worth of Tuesdays, and that's not gonna be the thing that closes us, and it's gonna be a worthwhile experiment. So that's where it's been.
Well, it is a beautiful culture that y'all are creating through Good Work Austin, and obviously through your businesses as well. And I think as a community, we're appreciative of the work that you're doing, and hope it continues. And we hope that our community will continue to support what y'all are doing, because it's good work.
Love it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I really
thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.